Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of The Week That Was. I'm your host, Saeed Khan, and I am joined by some regulars and by some newbies all to have a good time in the conversation today. So we'll start with Joel Sklar from Joel Sklar. Hello, howdy do. We're also joined by Deadline Detroit's own columnist and recent returnee from the Rolling Stones concert, which I believe in Yiddish is Reiling Steiners. Is this true?
Sounds German. German, but it could be.
That's how my grandmother used to refer to them.
I had a dorm mate who clearly deceived me about this when he mentioned that it was Yiddish. Nancy Derringer.
Thanks. Hi.
We also have columnist for Deadline Detroit, civil rights activist, and PR consultant par excellence, Greg Bowens.
Hello, hello.
And of course, we have our own maestro, the editor of Deadline Detroit, Alan Lengel.
Hello, hello.
So let's start off with some good news for this Friday, and that, of course, is the release of Danny Fenster. So, Alan, I know that a personal friend of the family. How are things at Shea Fenster?
I think they're going pretty well. You know, I mean, Danny went and got a haircut to get that shaggy look away. He got really a nice haircut. He got his beard trimmed. You know, I think it's probably a little overwhelming. A lot of people are calling or trying, stopping by. But, it's obviously a relief after nearly 6 months, a relief for him, a relief for his parents, his brother, the rest of his relatives, and certainly, the community, the close friends. I've known Danny since birth. And it was hard for everyone, but particularly for the family, it was extremely trying, and they pulled it off. And so there's certainly, I think there's going to be there's an adjustment suddenly. I mean, you're so in this sort of emergency mode for so long, in this anxious mode for so long, and then you finally have resolved. And Joel, as a psychologist, could probably address some of that, but it's
sure the guy. Yeah, the PTSD and the isolation. The guy was. I can't imagine being in the position he was in.
Yeah,
especially when I heard there was at 11, when he got that sentence for 11 years, I thought, oh my God, he's never getting out.
Right. I think they were sort of, that was sort of the process of maybe getting out, but still, it was certainly unclear after that. Like there was nothing certain 100% each step of the way as they were, working on it. But like I say, thankfully he's back now. He's chilling out and trying to, figure out the next steps.
Is his
Nancy,
wife?
126 journalists still imprisoned, and I know Danny mentioned them in his presser on the way back.
Right.
This is still a major issue for journalists around the world.
Yeah. It's still, there's not only that. There's still just thousands of people there have been imprisoned who are, even just doctors and teachers there who were, who weren't playing by all the rules and going with all the, the junta's way of life. So I think there's still, the upside of really a horrible situation is that a lot of people had never heard of Myanmar and not realizing it was Burma. A lot of people did not know what turmoil that country is in, that a dictator, the military has taken over, and it's really a horrible situation there. And he's left, and he's still very conscious of the fact that he feels a strong connection with that country, and so.
Well, no country. The people of a country are not its government, and. There was a fairly large, actually the largest in the country, but since Myanmar is such a small country, it's not saying much, but there's a Myanmar emigre community in Fort Wayne, where I used to live, Fort Wayne, Indiana. And there were some spectacular people. They were just, they were great, but unfortunately this is, this military government has been imposed upon him, and that's what they have to live with. Alan, is his wife out yet? Is she coming?
Not yet. I think so.
Okay, because they're not going to take anything out on her, are they?
No, I think she'll be fine.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I mean, I think Myanmar is one of these countries that sort of gets sandwiched in both Indochina and the Indian subcontinent,
Right.
and that country that George Harrison put on a concert for, Bangladesh, and in many ways, I think Myanmar has just really escaped the radar of the U.S. With the exception, I think, of some of the activism around Aung San Suu Kyi, who apparently just got arrested for even more charges in Myanmar.
Mhm.
So pretty active situation there. Greg,
I mean, I was going to say real quickly, the judicial system there is just so farcical. I mean, they just pile on charges. They convict you on flimsy to no evidence. They sentence you to arbitrarily to whatever. It's really, and apparently there in the country, somebody can come to the authorities and say, so-and-so did this to me. And if they accept that, then you're charged. You have a charge against you and you have to deal with it.
Mhm.
Wait, are you talking about Myanmar or are you talking about Texas?
I mean, yeah.
Myanmar,
Exactly.
Texas.
Right.
Okay, just wondering about that. So, Greg, I mean, I think that what Danny has done is he's shed a spotlight on Myanmar now. And I know that from the standpoint of activism, something you've been involved with, where do you see this going? I mean, is it a moment that we can become more engaged with Myanmar, or maybe even more specifically with the plight of journalists around the world? Is this a touchstone moment?
I would love to say it is, but considering the way that journalists here in America still have to deal with a certain level of harassment when it comes by even by the police or protesters. I think it was yesterday there was a journalist that was roughed up outside of the trial, one of the trials that the guys were on murder for. I think it was in Georgia, or no, Minneapolis. And so I wish that it would bring more attention to the kind of struggles that journalists face when they try and do reporting. And certainly when it comes to Myanmar and Burma, or it used to be Burma, I'm not even sure that this will actually bring more attention to that country, because the big headliner is China and China's dominance on the world stage and what they're doing around the world, from Africa to all over the place. So
I was going to say, I think that the Trump administration, that Trump himself, has really helped knock it up a few levels of hostility toward the press. I think in Myanmar, there's actually, I think, some language in the law under the the military that about fake news. So it's horrible, the situation that he created here in this country where there was such hostility. You would see it during the campaigns where Trump would suddenly go, and there's the media right there, and people would turn around and start screaming at CNN and just being so hostile toward all reporters, and it was just really, and it hasn't just suddenly gone away.
No. Well, it reminds me of that.
I hope that his wife is going to be released soon. I know, Alan, you were saying you were pretty optimistic.
Yeah, I think she won't have a problem.
It reminds me of that scene in the movie Pink Floyd The Wall where Bob Geldof goes fascist and he starts pointing people out in the crowd. Well, I mean, we don't even have to go that far away. I think it was the judge in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial who now has banned MSNBC from the courtroom. And there was a scene on TV where he's schmoozing with the defense attorneys, sarcastically pointing out the punditry of the media. So, I mean, this is quite a case.
I heard the MSNBC crew's version of how they happen to be in proximity to jurors, and it sounded, I don't know, it sounded very reasonable to me. Something about a car that either broke down or they had a flat tire or something, and he approached a van that had the jurors in it, and I think he was asking for help, like, could you tell me where I can get this fixed or something. I forget what it was, but it made it sound like this whole thing about, because I mean, generally speaking, reporters play by those rules. I mean, when a judge tells you do not contact the jurors during the trial, you have to do that, because if you're found out, and you would be, it's a felony in some cases. And so, I mean, Alan, you've covered courts before. I mean, that's just...
We had somebody at the Detroit News, if I recall, quite a while ago. He might have been an intern who contacted one of the jurors during a trial, and it was a big deal.
Yeah, an intern. But I mean, after the trial, of course, you can contact them.
Yeah, it's fair game. But I mean, anytime you interfere with the jury, Joel knows, anytime you
absolutely. And can I make, there's a point here with the judge, just generally, is that when you have appointed judges, even elected judges, you don't know what you're getting. And this judge has a temperament issue, is my guess. I don't know him well, but from what I'm reading, there may be some temperament issues. There may be some bias issues, allowing the defense, to call the guys that were shot looters and criminals, essentially. I mean, and just for all people that go before judges, you got to realize how arbitrary the system is, because you have a judge who may be a little bit nuts. I'm not saying this guy is, but I've been before judges that I'm pretty sure are pretty nuts. You're locked with them, and your fate, especially in a criminal case, can be sealed by a god-awful judge. And there's a danger that people don't know of really who we're electing to make these really life-changing choices. And this judge may be the epitome of that, where he's been on the bench forever. I don't know if he's elected or appointed. My guess is he's elected and is an incumbent, gets reelected. He's got his own fiefdom. And my guess is he treats his court just like that. And his rules go, not necessarily the law.
I think there's something, I guess I would call it judge syndrome, that happens to some judges after they've been on the bench for many years. They really have, it's almost like you walk into a room and everyone rises and everyone's paying attention to you. And you tell a joke from the bench and everyone laughs, and everybody hangs on your every word. And I think, a stable personality, knows how to be self-effacing enough that doesn't go to their head. But I can see where a lot of them, they do, they're called Your Honor, for God's sake, so.
Absolutely. Everywhere they get, they're called judge. And they're giving these titles of nobility almost. And it's really, I've just seen it too many times where it's like, my God, this judge may not be the swiftest boat in the water. I'm not talking about the guy in Indiana, just generally. And the issues are over their head. They may be lazy. They may, if you're on the bench, you dictate your own time. You can show up when you want, you leave when you want. But it's something that the public needs to know, that the judicial system is based on, you need judges who are good judges, and people really don't know who they're putting on the bench. Right. And that's a danger for the community and be a danger for them. So I think this guy may be illustrative of that effect, right? He's going to dictate the rules, and if this guy is acquitted, it's over.
Well, I mean, that applies to the last few justices on the Supreme Court as well, qualitatively. But I mean, you got to figure that they're the only profession that has the preferred pronoun of your. So that's definitely an exclusive club that you have to consider. So we had some excitement here closer to home, one that seemed to welcome the media, and at least certainly the person involved was playing to the media, and that was President Biden, who visited our very own Hamtramck EV plants just a couple of days ago. Certainly got that in time before his colonoscopy today. Which, by the way, I guess he is signing over the country for a few hours to Vice President Kamala Harris.
While he's under anesthesia.
I'm not sure if this is a confidence-building gesture to say, no, the White House is not blanking the VP, as what happened earlier. But is this a Lady Jane Grey moment? Is this where President Kamala Harris becomes like Lady Jane Grey, serving the country or the kingdom for 9 days?
The mouse that roared. I mean, how long? Every year, every time. I've had 2 colonoscopies in my life. I think my husband's had 3, and every time they get better. I mean, the prep is still the prep. It's the worst part, but the anesthesia gets better. You're only under for about. I mean, it doesn't take long. I mean, you're under for what? A couple of hours. Maybe. I mean, you're under for usually just a few minutes, and you're incapacitated for just a couple of hours. So, my guess is, what mischief can Kamala Harris get up to in that time?
Well, I would have given her the country over from the moment I had to start expunging things, preparing for it, because that's the That's the more undignified part of it. So here.
Well, yeah, and think about it. He was in Detroit. He had to be in Detroit when it started, so it must have been a short visit.
No, you start in the afternoon, late afternoon. Go ahead.
Well, it would be. I mean, then you get into the whole thing. Did he eat at Lafayette or did he eat at American? What caused it?
Prep.
So here he comes in. He apparently loved the EV Hummer. He probably needs a little bit more coaching on the highway system of I-75 and I-95, but he kind of thread the needle between 94 and 96, so that's okay. But what does this mean for Michigan? What does it mean for the auto industry? What does it mean for the Democratic delegation getting a shot of the arm from POTUS?
Let me say right here, one of the things that I struggle with, even as a Democrat, and a very, very involved one, is how this whole bill came about, but more so, what does it really mean for average Americans? And going to visit the Jeep plant is great, and that's wonderful. But these cars, many of them, they're priced out of reach of most people. Many of them, we can't find a way to really relate. I mean, who doesn't like a Hummer? We all like Hummers. Hummers are cool. They're big. They're powerful. Oh, well, Nancy doesn't like Hummers. But for the rest of us,
Put a pin in that, because I have something to say on that subject. Go ahead.
Okay. But at the same time, coming to talk about the electric vehicle and the jobs that it's going to create and stuff like that, is there's a disconnect that's happening, I think, with people. And we can't even, you get a Hummer, you can't even charge it. Where are you going to charge it at? Your electric bill is already out of this world. So, I mean, we've got to work harder to make this Build Back America, whatever thing, more relevant to people's lives.
All right. I was just going to say, first of all, I hate Hummers, and I've never understood. And I understand. I saw something about that particular model that Biden drove at the EV, at the Factory Zero. Excuse me. It's unbelievably heavy because of the size of the batteries that are needed to push that mofo down the road. And it's like, my feeling is, if you're going to make electric vehicles, make electric vehicles. Don't make these stunt cars, like Hummers and even the pickup trucks. I kind of question the need for. I mean, I think if they want electric vehicles to catch on, then make the kind of cars that people drive. I want to see more electric, Ford Escapes, or whatever the Edges, or sedans. God forbid a sedan. That people might actually want to drive a sedan. But anyway, more to the point. With every major improvement in transportation technology, the government kind of has to lead the way. The freeway system wasn't built by people with shovels who decided they wanted to have a better road between here and Jackson. The federal government had to step in and do this. So Greg, when you ask, where are you going to charge them? Well, there are charging stations all over the place. We need a lot more of them, and we need better ones. And I trust in the technology will advance enough that, within a few more years, there's going to be nearby charging stations. You'll be able to charge them at home. We're probably going to enter some sort of most of us who live in a house with another adult are 2-car households. Am I right? Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right. So I think what we're going to move toward is kind of this binary vehicle thing, where you're going to have the EV is going to be your town car, because they are going to have a range of less than 100 miles, and you're just going to, and who drives more than 100 miles in a day? Most people don't. But at the same time, the and then you're going to have your gas car for when you want to go on a longer trip, maybe. And and that might be an interim stage to where we all have EVs at some point. But we just got a comment from a reader here on the screen that said there are charging stations everywhere, and she's right. So
at Myers, Garage downtown.
She said Myers are installing them in their stores, and Nancy, I can go 2 blocks up and turn left and come to 2 gas stations, go 6 blocks down, come to another gas station, go 4 blocks over, another gas station. I've got 5 gas stations within 3 minutes of my house, and none of them have a charging station. So to say that they're everywhere is, I think it's sort of misleading. But beyond that, But beyond
have
that,
those. Let me add this though. People who have these
more
put them in
significant
their
point.
houses.
Yeah, okay. That's cool. The more significant point, and there's something else related to that, but the more significant point is that these things are expensive. Cars have gotten more expensive. Used cars have gotten more expensive. And while I can appreciate the technology and having a cool electric vehicle, I love those Mustangs, those electric ones. They look sweet. Those SUVs. But you know, if we're Democrats, our thing is supposed to connect the normal people, the working people, the everyday people, and touting a vehicle that's 60, 70, $100,000 as
You
like,
don't
the way
need
to
a
connect.
$70,000 Hummer. That's my point. I just Googled 2022 Toyota Prius starting at $24,525. You can buy, Chevy Bolts and these more pedestrian things. I mean the Hummer is just the flashy thing that they're going to bring out for the presidential visit. It would, it probably would have been considered bad optics if Joe Biden had gotten into a Chevy Bolt and driven it across the floor. I mean, it's the flashy thing. Same with the Ford F-150. But I just, it's fatuous to say they're all out of reach of average people. They're simply not. Even there's even an entry level Tesla. Go ahead.
Well, I think that's why they didn't have him driving an electric tank, Nancy, because that went over so well for Dukakis back in '88. I'm sorry, Joe.
No, I got to push back on. Let me push back on that. I got to push back on that because 40% of the people in the city of Detroit do not have a car, Nancy. And so saying that 20% or $20,000 is within, most people's reach is simply not true. That's not
40% of the people in the city of Detroit are low income and poor. So yeah, they're right. I'm not saying this is a revolution for everyone. It's generally for middle class people who can afford to buy or lease a newer vehicle. I mean, I don't think that's a crime here. I don't think we have to make them so cheap that anybody can go out and get one. I mean, that's just
why not? Why not?
All right.
Why wouldn't you make them so cheap that anybody can get them? But
you can't have any car that's so cheap that anybody can get them. That's
we used to have the Volkswagen. That's how that started out.
Oh, you're making
the Car. I remember that. That was cheap.
We had the Yugo.
The Yugo.
Love the Yugo. Right, the Yugo. There've been lots of examples, but Nancy, I think you're not seeing the forest for the trees here. My point is that you have to make things more relevant. If you're going to spend all of your political capital on getting this big bill passed, and you've got Republicans running around talking about they're spending trillions and blah, 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 and what about the price of bread, and what about the price of gas, and all this stuff, you have to face that kind of stuff head on. And, rolling out in a cool Hummer that's beyond most people's reach is not the way to do it. There's a better way to do it, is what I'm saying.
There are other things in the bill, It's not just EVs.
They should roll out with maybe if they roll
other things in the bill.
Right, maybe if they roll out with the Tesla, more people can relate.
Well, I mean, you sound like somebody saying, "Why are we building these high-speed roads called freeways? Why most people never get their car over 45 miles an hour? They're never going to be able to drive on those cars or on those roads because they're so fast." And the point is that you have to kind of lead the way. That my point is that particularly when it comes to infrastructure and transportation infrastructure, you have to lead the way. The government has to lead the way on these things. It's in road building. I'd like to see more public transit personally. I'm a big fan of public transit. And I'd like to see more of that as well. I don't think EVs are not EV and charger station infrastructure is not the only thing in this gigantic bill. So
no, it's not. But that was the thing they were talking about. And if you're going to lead the way, then you must lead the way in a way that allows for you to get reelected, to be able to move things forward without having all this like bougie stuff up there. I'm sorry. I mean, I get it, but we are in a populist time here, and we cannot escape that. And if we're not going to
child care tax credits are going to be popular, I mean,
that would be great.
It's Hummers for all. Well, I mean, that's all. This is all stuff that's in the bill. I mean,
so maybe you should have went to a child care center and did it from there.
No, all right, yeah, that would be very effective.
Well, it is. I mean, Greg, the flip side of that is that look, this is industry. This is generating revenue here in the city of Detroit. It's generating jobs. So look, let's face it, people on the assembly line, some of them aren't going to be able to afford what they're making, but that's the way it is. Look at Shinola, they're producing $600, $800 watches. I'm sure a lot of their employees can't, afford it. And I mean, that was sort of the thing with Shinola. Do we trash Shinola, or do we celebrate Shinola for creating jobs, or for sort of taking the Detroit name and capitalizing on it as sort of the working class image, and then selling these $600-800 watches and these incredibly expensive leather products and bicycles? And so I get there's an argument, both sides of that.
Yeah,
well, I mean, don't get me wrong. Now, I'd love to be able to have a Hummer and a cigar and, roll down the street and, be big time. I mean, who doesn't want to be big time?
Well, you know what? We're going to start a GoFundMe page for you.
No, he wants a Volkswagen. So go ahead.
Sorry, Joel, I think you were going to come in.
My only point is that I think over time, technology is going to make things cheaper, more accessible. And we're at that point now where these things are relatively new and expensive. In my lifetime, I remember TVs were super expensive, and, there was only Sony color TV. The market's going to dictate things. And I think that as technology continues and the market grows, that these prices or these items will become more affordable. How affordable? I don't know. I agree with Greg that you do have to focus on the immediacy of the needs, the populist issues. I think you're absolutely correct. The only way for the Democrats to move forward is to get reelected. That means in 2022 and 2024. And I think they do have to speak to what Greg is talking to, the immediacy and the urgency of need. Gas, bread, how do I afford the simple things? And I understand the juxtaposition of this, remarkably luxurious item as against just the need to be able to buy milk. They need to be able to pay for gas. And I think the Democrats have to hit those issues if they're going to get reelected. I think that's the larger arc.
But, I mean, it's interesting to Joel's point about technology and, things getting cheaper. About 3 years ago, I was at the auto show, the press part before the show started, interviewing a auto editor. And I was saying, should I hold off on buying a new car? Because it sounds like in 2022, we're going to start having, autonomous, the self-driving cars. And he said, no, he says, you know what, it's going to be probably 2025. We come out really finally with one. It's going to be so expensive. He goes, very few people are going to be able to afford it. He said, we're not going to be able to afford those kind of cars till probably 2028, 2030.
And by then you're going to be retired to Florida and sitting in the, and walking down to buy your newspaper every day.
Going to the clubhouse, going to the 50-cent movie.
Getting a dinner, me and you, we'll get a dinner together.
See, they all have a dinner, early bird.
Bread. It's hot here.
Well, Alan, that's when you can actually go electric golf cart.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, we're down in the villages.
My little scooter.
I don't know, Nancy. I sort of heard in there with your disdain for the Hummer, maybe a case for an electric lowrider. Should we advocate for that for you?
I have never. Well, I don't know. I've in my personal experience, I find that the kind of people that are drawn to things like Hummers, although they're not my people. But I did love the scene in Borat when he gets into the Hummer. And the guy says, this car is a pussy magnet. He's like, oh, where is the magnet? Excuse me for lowering the tone here. It was funny.
I remember reading an article recently about how there's a trend of people getting high performance and luxury cars and refitting them for electric, like old Rolls Royces, like Silver Shadows and Phantoms.
Wow.
Of course, it's about the price of what they paid for the car, a couple of $100,000. But hey, you're going to have a Rolls Royce which will be in perpetuity and still be eco-friendly, apparently.
It's dresser change for these people. So, top of the dresser change. So.
Well, the one thing that we can say about the Yugo, it was the only car that a Pinto went up to and said, sucks to be you.
I mean, I think the Yugo was when it was going across the Mackinac Bridge, and did it blow over or something?
Terrifying.
Yeah, that was sort of made it legendary.
Yeah,
it could fly for a brief period of time. Yeah, that's correct. So,
The wrong use of a
You guys are cruel, man.
Sorry about that. I apologize.
So we're talking about money for infrastructure, but there was also a recent item about an audit that was conducted here in Michigan that claims that at least $3.9 billion with a B dollars was given as overpayment for unemployment benefits for freelancers. How badly is this going to sting Governor Whitmer?
Well, it's hard. It's hard to say. The only thing I'll say is that, I mean, it looks awful, but I think it's one of those issues that may just sort of people just go, all right, whatever. When we talk about government money, a lot of times it doesn't seem real. You go, oh, 3.9 billion. Yeah. I mean, it should be. It should be under scrutiny, and it should come up during the election. But I don't know that candidates are, the elections are so simple. They're about sound bites. They're about, sort of button pushing issues of, mask mandates or abortion or, gun rights. I don't know.
Critical race theory.
Critical race theory. I don't know that. This is one that has a lot of legs to it, but I could be wrong.
Well, 3.9 billion might not mean much to people, but Greg, I can see people spending 39 million on an ad campaign that really goes after the people that they hold responsible for it. Do you think this?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, if you're one of the people that got to pay your $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, whatever amount of money you got in a pinch that you thought you got legitimately. Now you have to pay it back. Well, you're not going to be happy about what's going on. And certainly the issues with the unemployment agency, the unemployment insurance folks, that goes back 5, 6, 7 years, right? But the governor came in and it was fix the damn roads and fix everything else too while you're at it, right? And yet the issues like the unemployment are still there. The issue of lead pipes is still there with Benton Harbor and suing and that stuff like that. Even we're talking about plants, the plant down the street there, the G plant, the Stella's plant, is poisoning people and they're getting fined for it. And so, yes, we've had a pandemic. Yes, we've had these things happening. But at the same time, when you say the $30 billion, that means people have to pay that money back and they're not going to be happy. So it's one more thing piled on top of another thing, piled on top of another thing that people are dealing with that I think is going to impact the governor. I think it's going to make it hard. I mean, not for James Craig, he's not going to fix anything. But if there is a candidate that can jump out there and take advantage of the malaise that people feel and tie this into part of the dysfunction that seems to be going on beyond the pandemic, it's going to be tough for her.
But isn't that threading the needle? I mean, you're going to find that a Republican gubernatorial candidate is going to have to say, I'm coming in to fix up the state capitol, but the state capitol in the legislature, at least, is controlled by the Republicans.
Well, you could just say, look, our leadership is out of touch. They're out of touch. They're rolling around in electric Hummers that most people can't afford and smacking people on the head who got some help during the pandemic with their uninsurance, and now they got to pay it back. They don't have to promise to fix anything. All they have to do is say, this is what's wrong, and nobody's addressing it.
I think I read somewhere that they don't expect that money to ever be claimed.
Right.
It's not. Nobody's going to pay that back. It's gone.
But those letters are terrifying people. When somebody gets that letter in the mail from the government saying you owe us money, it scares the hell out of them. Understandably so. So it's pretty disruptive because I get calls about that all the time. And it's like, it's a thorny issue.
Yeah.
But it protects people. It has an immediate effect on somebody. You open that letter up and your stomach drops. I mean, these people, it causes a lot of stress.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I have relatives in Muskegon. I have a aunt in Muskegon who is, lost her job 2 years ago and got unemployment and then got one of those letters saying you got to pay it back. So, she may not understand, what she's reading with this insurance agency saying that, oh, well, you're not going to be expected to pay it back. But for damn sure, having to go on her bank account and pay that back, she's going to make that connection and she's going to say the government is so messed up.
But all the calls I get, nobody mentions the governor. It's the agency.
Yeah.
I'm not sure at this point there's any accountability that people are associating, but it just, the point is that it messes people's lives up. They perseverate over it. They get anxious over it, which is why they call lawyers.
I
And if
think
I can give a satisfactory answer, it just prolongs that anxiety.
I think our unemployment system during the pandemic has been less than stellar. I think there have been a lot of problems, and
Von Derderian, occasional guest on this show in the previous administration, made a really good point once. I remember him talking about this, and he said a unemployment system should exist to serve the unemployed. He said, but what a lot of these governors have done, particularly Republican governors, is come in and the first thing they do is mess with the unemployment system to make it so difficult to navigate that people just give up trying to get what they have coming to them.
Right.
And so he said, in fact, I think in Florida, I read that when you first hit the unemployment system website, it takes you to a available jobs page, which is fine at some point in it. But I mean, you still need to give people, help people, take care of their bills and everything, which is what unemployment insurance is for. And, that his point was that these sites are often made deliberately difficult to navigate. And it just, once you make it hard for people to use, then the frustration builds. And if you do get through and you do get your sweetened unemployment and you're a freelancer and maybe you're getting what's not necessarily owed to you, then then it's hey, we're getting something out of this rotten deal. So who knows?
Oh, for sure. Look, I'm a big fan of the governor and the Secretary of State and Dana Nessel. I mean, I think they're great, to be honest with you. But nobody's perfect. And when you ask that question as it relates to the everyday struggles of people, man, do you know there are houses in Pontiac that are $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, and we're not talking about in a good neighborhood. So I mean, if you're,
how did we get onto housing prices?
What?
How did we get onto housing prices? What are you talking about?
Nancy? It's one thing piling on another, piling on another, piling on another, and that frustration adds up, and it's going to be expressed. It's going to be expressed once these bonehead Republicans around here finally get their act together and really start taking advantage of it and stop talking about stupid stuff like critical race theory. We're going to have a hard time.
No, I agree with that for sure.
You know what's really scary, Joel? It's not those letters. It's getting these calls from guys with Indian accents saying that I owe them, the government, all this money for property fraud, and I better go ahead and get a bunch of Visa cards down at CVS and pay them right away.
That's what you have to pay heed to. That's exactly how government contacts people, usually through a spam number and an Indian accent telling you that you owe money for and what your social security number is. Those you have to deal with immediately. Yeah.
I've had a scam recently, and I've sort of followed through with them, where they tell me I purchased a computer, a Dell 7 for $799 with these many gigabytes, and if I haven't bought that, please call now within 3 days. And so they I play along with this guy, and I said, okay, hey, look, I didn't buy this. Okay, no problem. Here, type this into your computer, and it's a thing that allows them, a third party, to go into the computer. And I go, well, I don't know. And then finally
I believe you actually called.
Well, I do it because I know it's a scam, but I said, this sounds like a scam. He goes, no, just keep doing it. And I go, no, this is a scam. Why are you trying to steal my money? No, why do you say this? He goes, I am an Amazon employee. He goes, Amazon badge number, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'm going to call Amazon and see if you're employed there. He goes, I am Amazon.
Oh, that is great. That's a good response. I like what that guy did.
Yeah.
I
said, why don't
I'm like,
why don't you get a real job and make some real money? And he goes, I make $9,000 a month. And I said, I bet you do.
I steal $9,000 a month.
I had a guy call me over the summer, and he said, I need your social security number. I said, well, actually, it's on my social security card in my wallet, and it's on the other side of the room. And can I have a minute? And he says, yeah. And I said, well, listen, I'm in bed, and I'm just going to have your wife walk over and get it from the man. And the guy started laughing. He actually said, that made my day.
That is funny.
So I said, well, it made your wife's day too.
That is funny. That is great.
Wow.
Next time, say it's his mother.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I really shouldn't be an ageist, should I?
No,
Okay.
you shouldn't be ageist, right?
So speaking of issues that'll probably end up in a campaign ad somewhere down the road, the city of Ann Arbor has announced that it is the first American city to require feminine products to be available in all public restrooms. That's going to leave only the urinals for me to then realize that I'm in or not in the right restroom.
Well, they're what do you call it? I wanted to say bisexual restrooms, but they're not bisexual.
Unisex, I believe.
Yeah.
What do you call them? They're unisex.
Unisex,
Unisex.
okay.
There you go.
Anybody, any sex, any of the different flavors, perfectly welcome.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you see this getting much political hay?
No.
No. Okay.
As the only person on this panel who has ever menstruated, I want to say it will not. It's very nice to have, and it's great. I mean, and occasionally, in my life, I had to go into the ladies and hope that they had a vending machine, because that was the previous solution for, an unexpected period when you were in a public place. Is you hope they had a vending machine in the ladies, and then it would work, which it often didn't. So, but no, I don't think it's going to. In fact, I'm really baffled by this whole issue. The so-called tampon tax, and how we have this. We've signed legislation now to make all sanitary products free of sales tax, and I guess I just when I was buying those, I just never really thought they're not so expensive that the sales tax is onerous, and I just but maybe I need to take more of Greg's advice and just see that it's helping people's lives. So no, I don't think it's going to lead to anything. In fact, it's going to be a non-issue. That's why it passed so quickly.
America's a strange place when it comes to restrooms. I mean, these are just not debate. I mean, and Nancy, how are things in France? I mean, was there more ecumenicism there when it came to restrooms?
Yes. Well, mainly because the bathrooms everywhere that we went in France were downstairs. So you had to go down the stairs to get to them. And it was usually a narrow, winding old building, winding staircase in an old building. But they've solved the trans problem the same way that they solved it at Great Lakes Coffee. There are two bathrooms and you can use whichever one you want. So at Great Lakes Coffee, they have these great signs on the two restrooms, or two one-holers, two bathrooms with one toilet and sink in them. And one says better lighting and the other one says stronger flush. So, so depending on whether you need to fix your makeup or drop a deuce, that's
you got to choose.
Yeah.
Wow. As somebody who worked at a lot of newspaper buildings for a long time, in the men's bathroom was just a thrill to go into a stall and find papers from different cities. Like Chicago Tribune, Philadelphia Inquirer. Wow, it hit the jackpot.
So you're telling me you'd pick a newspaper off the floor of a men's restroom?
Men's restrooms were, and look, at the Detroit News, at the Oregonian in Portland, at the Washington Post, there were newspapers on the floor in the stalls.
My point is that you would then pick them up and read them?
Yes.
I'd
wash my hands afterwards. It wasn't like the Seinfeld episode.
You're a monster.
They're horrible.
Oh my God.
He didn't say he would pick it up and lick it. He just said he would read it.
I wash my hands afterwards.
That doesn't qualify as a fetish, does it? That you like newspapers from different cities?
I grew up where my mother would yell, "Hey, can you throw a magazine in here?" Open the door and throw it in. Yeah.
Actually, as somebody who used to walk a few blocks on, I think it was Monday, to get the Chicago papers on the Sunday Chicago papers to read at to the local cigar stand and newsstand. Everybody loves this. I mean, every journalist loves to read out of town papers, don't you? I mean, I
Love
would
it.
say that's true.
It was a thrill. I mean, before the internet, you would go to Borders or, in Seattle at Pike's Market, there was this huge newspaper place. You could get a newspaper, Sunday News, Boston Globe, LA Times. And for journalists, that was just like a thrill.
I know.
Well, also before, I mean, there were only 4 companies that owned the newspapers, and it was just sort of churning homogeneity in so many places. It's interesting in London. I remember going to like public restrooms in Covent Garden, and also you find this at Amsterdam Schiphol Airport. You're there doing your business, and the cleaning staff, much of which is female, will simply come out or roll on in while people are doing their business.
Don't they knock and say, housekeeper?
No. I mean, I'm talking about just coming into the restroom with the urinals and everything.
Okay.
So it's not even getting into. No one comes barging in. Only Larry Craig does that. But the fact that you've got a different anthropology.
We have all seen what you guys have, and it's just not impressive. It doesn't do much for us. So it's like. I hate to break it to you.
I hope you're just talking about the urinals, because I know they're not architecturally that spectacular.
Well, the full length urinals I miss. Those ones that were like, they were the full length. They were like 5 feet.
Yeah, you could fall in them.
Those were classics. Those were wonderful urinals, and I remember. And then remember the trough at Tiger Stadium, which terrified me when I was 6. Yeah.
Oh, the trough. Yeah.
There was a trough. There was literally, like my dad would take the line games, and there was a trough, like 12 feet. Everybody's, and it's just like the spray. It just was the most disgusting, horrific thing. And I was behind a guy who was in his late 80s, taking hours and I'm thinking, what, and I'm like, I don't know why it's taking so long for the guy. I don't understand there's prostate issues at that time in my life, but yeah, I remember those, the trough, but I do miss the full length urinals, and I'm going to advocate for them to come back.
A friend of mine is married to a fairly well-to-do dentist, and they have owned and renovated 2 or 3 houses now through the course of their marriage. And in every single one, the first thing he does is have a urinal installed. He said he absolutely loves it. It's the best. So
man after my own heart.
No more fumbling in the dark. What?
As opposed to a bidet?
Bidet.
Okay.
You say of course. We're Americans.
Bidet from France, and you got the pronunciation right.
And you know what? The bidet has kind of disappeared from France. I mean, it's only in the older buildings, and the newer hotels don't have them. They're kind of gone. They're disappearing. I guess people now just take a shower every day. Who knows? But yeah. Whereas in Asia, the bidet apparently is huge now. So
Japan, they have got the coolest toilets with pressure change, temperature change,
dryers that blow your butt. It sounds wonderful.
The whole thing. I mean,
that's where technology needs to be invested in. That is fundamental to existence. So I'm all for that.
Yeah,
I hope the infrastructure bill goes a lot toward that.
Yeah. The last time the Olympics were in Korea, I believe I probably saw 3 different features from local reporters going, "I've got to show you the toilet in my hotel room."
Don't understate the toilet.
All right.
One time I was in London, and some guy who looked well-to-do was panhandling for change. And I'm like, "Are you okay, man?" He's like, "I just need to use the bathroom." So, they surprisingly would not take Apple Pay. So there you go.
So they need to have some kind of like touchless, you can just put your chip, put on your car.
Now, see, this conversation we're having right here is endemic of what I've been talking about this whole podcast. There's so many first world problems. You guys are so bourgeois. You're talking about Japan. You're talking about these other places, and
I've never been to Japan. You live in Grosse Pointe. Don't get on your high horse about this, okay?
Right, don't try to bougie us.
Yeah, don't bougie us. You're as bougie as we are.
And your bidets and all of that.
I don't have a bidet. I just know how you pronounce the word.
When folks are worried about how to stack their regular bathroom with toilet paper, this is the disconnect, and we're fueling it. We're part of it. Okay. We need to talk about the real issues that are impacting people.
You know what I think the real issue is? What about the Curb Your Enthusiasm season this year?
Tremendous.
Now we're
Sorry.
talking.
Now we're
That's
talking.
Tremendous.
You're showing premium cable privilege. I'm
Yes,
sorry, I can't.
yes.
I can't engage in this.
This has been a great season so
Again,
far.
you're a monster.
It's been
I
a
only
great
get
season.
access. I only get access to that when I stay at a 3-star hotel or better, Alan. So, yeah,
Well,
I'm behind.
if you can find a way to catch the season, it's pretty good.
It is pretty good.
It is
Yeah.
good.
So in honor of Nancy, I guess we have to ask the question, this could be the last time, this could be the last time, maybe the last time, I don't know. If anyone out there hasn't done so yet, please read Nancy's excellent column in Deadline Detroit on her experience with Rolling Stones concerts, including the latest one. I got to say, Nancy, it was some of the finest prose I've read in a long time.
Oh my God! Let's not go overboard here. It was
No.
Viva
It really
la
was.
Nancy!
I mean,
What happens when you go to France?
it was a very unexpected reaction that I had to watching those guys. They were just, it was like poignant almost, because it made me think that I have been listening to the Rolling Stones since I was a very little girl. And, 12 by 5, my older brother, I had older siblings. They brought 12 by 5 and, Between the Buttons and all this stuff in here. And now I'm an old lady and I'm still listening to the Rolling Stones, and the core of the band is still intact and they're still doing it, and they're doing it great. I mean, it was a really high energy show. I know that they're not touring at the pace they used to, but a few days will pass between each show, but they're still they're killing it. And it's like this is a model for how we're supposed to live our lives as we get older. It's like, find something you do really, really well and just keep doing it. As long as
people marvel that Tom Brady still plays quarterback at a high level at 44, and look what the Stones do in their 80. I mean, it's physical. I mean, really, they're on stage, they're present, they're moving. That's pretty.
Nobody's tackling them.
Yeah, but that's all. I mean, in fairness, Keith is not tackling Mick.
Yeah, you're right.
No, that's true. But he's juking. Seriously, it's just, to me, it's like, I can't believe these guys, these old guys, older than me, 20. I just can't believe they're. It's amazing. I think it's to their physical abilities, their cognitive abilities. They're out there and they're jamming, and their shows are really good. They're beautifully done. Jagger speaks to the crowd. It's really they do a great job.
And it's funny because I mentioned the column the first and only time I had seen them before Monday was in 1975, which was right after my high school graduation. And now that I think when I think back on that show, a lot of the things that Jagger, what they were doing then, they're still doing today, which is the 2-song break in the middle for Keith to sings like 2 songs back to back while Mick goes, I guess he takes an oxygen treatment or gets a massage or something backstage.
Or meets his latest young girlfriend.
Yeah, he calls out a number of local surrounding cities. Hello Akron, hello Canton. This was in Cleveland, and so they're doing the same thing. But people love it, and technology has only made it better. I mean, that was the tour with the giant inflatable penis, I believe, and in 1975, and now they have jumbotrons. So you can watch. I mean, you have a big visual elements so you can watch even if you're sitting in the cheap seats. So it was quite something.
You've seen
and their catalog is absurd. That catalog is so huge. Did they play it? When I saw they on the monitors, they had all their songs were listed and would just keep rolling. And that catalog.
It was different this time, but I'm sure. I mean, it was classics. It was 2 hours of classics. I don't think they really have any new material that they're promoting or anything. I don't think they have a record out.
There's so much to choose from.
There's so many classics. Exactly. I will say one thing. I was disappointed. They have one number in the show where the locals can vote on it, what they want to hear, and they give you 4 choices. And I can't remember what the 4th one was, but it was Sweet Virginia, Wild Horses, Play with Fire, and I forget what the other one was. Of course I voted for Sweet Virginia because, of course, Exile on Main Street is still one of my absolute favorites. But, of course, Detroit went with the obvious, and they sang Wild Horses. So, anyway. But, yeah, thank you.
It was probably rigged.
That's right. Audit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Maybe
your
not
kind
audit.
words, Saeed. It was a fun one
No,
to write.
it really. I mean,
Well,
I felt like it was there.
Okay.
Everybody's favorite Stone song. Let's hear it.
Ooh,
Yeah, I don't have one. I was downtown and I saw these jackets with the lips and the tongue and all that, and I was like, huh, I wonder what's going on. And then it was like, oh, of course, But these people, it was such to see the baby boomers so happy. It was amazing.
but
Detroit
it
was
was also
alive.
a lot
know.
of a lot of younger people too, and a few there were probably older boomers too. All right,
Yeah.
I'll go first.
Well, but you know
Yeah.
what? You guys are gonna have to take out your ecstasy again and your gummies because Journey is coming and Billy Idol is coming, which I would be more with the Billy Idol thing along
We
with
were-
Toto.
I think
and Mark.
Genesis is next week as well. So
We were too
I just
old
love
to
the
take
fact-
ecstasy.
I love the fact that in between shows, they have the time to sightsee. I mean, Ronnie Wood and the band was at Motown Museum. Mick was everywhere. I mean, taking
Yeah.
pictures by the fist. I thought it was really, really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're, who knows when they'll be back. Like you said, this could be the last time they may not be able to see the fist again. But
Yeah.
it was great. To answer your
answer-
question,
Yep.
I'm going to go with Monkey Man just for now. But it could change next hour for favorite Stone song.
Okay.
So
Joel.
I went with
sorry.
Satisfaction. It was the first one I heard, really from the Stones. Really, when I was a kid, and it sticks with me. And I think the line of "You don't always get what you want, but you just might, get what you need," is great. Is a wonder line.
Okay.
yes.
Alan?
I'd say Wild Horses.
Wow. Okay.
So
Ken, you're a monster. That
You know how you would
is
have voted. I
I'm a
don't know.
bad person. I'm bad.
For me,
awful.
I'm a Brian Jones era Stones fan.
Mm.
Okay.
And I'm still working on wondering whether Keith and Mick had him killed, but we'll see. But I'd have to go with either She's a Rainbow or Ruby Tuesday.
Oh, those are both so great. That
Yeah,
might be.
I just-
Ask me next hour, and my favorite song will be She's a
it
Rainbow.
might change. It's
Will
like
it ever be Wild Horses?
Never. Wild Horses is like Aretha's Respect. I have heard it so many times. If I never hear it again, I'll be fine. So.
Which, by the way, Rolling Stone magazine has redone after 17 years since the last time they did it, the top 500 songs of all time, and Aretha Franklin's Respect has now overtaken Like a Rolling Stone as number one.
Number one.
Wow.
Okay. Well, I look
Yeah.
forward to never hearing it again. So
I would start with number two. I would
she
start
has
with the
such
two.
a great catalog, and I don't know why we always have to hear that one when we could.
Well, as the only
House of
black guy
Jackson.
on the panel today, I gotta say Brown Sugar is the
Brown
best.
Sugar. Yeah.
And
Best Rolling Stone song.
the sleeper has awakened about the Rolling Stones. Thank you, Greg. All right.
I mean, I can't get no satisfaction, that's one, but still.
By the way,
love that one.
the Devo cover of that is
It's
priceless.
wonderful. Yeah.
It is. I love it.
Absolutely great, especially the video with the
Great.
beef putting the fork in the toaster. All right, we are at that time again for.
And now, it's time for Deadline Detroit's nominees for Schmuck of the Week.
All right, Joel, since you're a newbie to this, we're going to start with you. Who is your
I'll go.
Schmuck of the week?
I'll tell you who it is. I think it's all the critics that dogged Cade Cunningham and said he was a bust, couldn't play, was shooting terribly. The guy's the real deal. He's played this week, played great, been huge in clutch time. There are games, they beat the Pacers. They would not have beat the Pacers last year without Cade Cunningham. The guy's, he's a transcendent talent. I see what they saw in him, and he seems like a great guy for the city, level-headed. But my schmuck of the week is going to be plural. It's the immediate outcry that he was the wrong choice. He couldn't shoot, and the guy is transcendent. He's going to be among the best.
He's only going to get better.
He's phenomenal.
He's only going to get better.
And just seems like such a good person. He's not a big need guy. He's never a huge ego. I've been super impressed with the guy. So that's my pick.
So just for the three people from the Czech Republic who tune in every week, Cunningham is a member of the Detroit Pistons basketball team.
Yeah.
Right. The first guy picked in the draft, and there was a lot of controversy about it. But he was the right call. The guy's the
You
real
must
deal.
listen to way more sports talk radio than I do, because all I remember was everybody was saying, "I hope they pick him. I hope they pick him. I hope they pick him." And then
He was like the presumptive number one, but he started the season with like a historically bad shooting. You know, like the first 3 games, and people said he's a bum, he's a bust, and
Okay.
you can see when you can see like a thoroughbred. When you see a thoroughbred, you just know what you're, just they move differently. Their speed is different, their pacing's different. That's him.
Okay.
He sees everything. I mean, just a brilliant player. So I'm really
all the
excited.
lazy boy,
all the
basketball
haters
coaches out there.
all
the haters are wrong. The guy can play.
All right.
Thumbs up, kid. I love you, buddy.
Excellent. See, I mean, I haven't followed the Pistons since they had that one player that one of the Kardashians cursed and ruined his career.
Oh,
Blake Griffin.
Blake Griffin.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
playing for the New Jersey Nets now, which
Okay.
is a phenomenal team.
Yeah, I almost mistook him for Blake Edwards, but that would have really been wrong. Okay, Alan.
I'm going to go with Kevin Goff, the defense attorney who made a big stink about all the pastors and reverends in the audience. So I thought that was just so.
You
Somebody
need more
who's
background
covered.
in there, Alan. What lawyer for who? You have to talk about.
Oh, I am sorry. The
about.
lawyer for the defendant down in the Georgia case,
Oh.
where
Ahmaud
they
Arbery
shot the jogger. And I mean, I've covered a lot of cases over time, and people show up in the audience, whatever, and sometimes there's some prominent people. I mean, there's a lot of image issues. Sometimes the lawyer will tell people, don't have these people show up. It's not good, images, as Joel can attest to, image in court is a big deal. I covered the Chamber Brothers case in like 1988, where they were a big drug organization. And I was in the bathroom in the stall, no newspapers on the floor. And one of the dope dealers who was big time, he was a supplier, was wearing like a purple suit. And one of the attorneys turned around to him. I listened to the conversation. He goes, "Get rid of that suit. You look like a drug dealer." He said, "Go to Sears and get yourself some $99 suits, man. What are you doing?" So image is important in perceptions and stuff like that, but you can't help it. Sometimes somebody sees something really awful and they burst out crying. He was concerned about the mother being upset. It's part of the courtroom. The judge could control things, but the idea of trying to be that selective is real. I mean, it's not only racist, but
Well,
it's just
it was
outrageous.
very racist, because he not only said we don't want another preacher here, he said we don't need another black preacher here, which is
Right.
like, I try that with a white defendant and see how far you get with that. So.
Right.
Well, there was that bias when Frank Pantangeli's brother showed up in the testimony with Michael Corleone. So there has been past precedent. Now, Alan, just a point of clarification. I mean, this isn't the Chambers brothers that came up with "Time Has Come to Save the Day," was it?
No, different. There were 4 brothers from Arkansas who came up here and basically dominated the East Side crack organization for a long time. They're very well organized. They'd have payday on Thursdays. Everyone would come to a house and get paid. They had rules on the walls. It said, in the crack house, no friends over and stuff. They were very well organized.
That's downright Puritan. Okay.
Yeah, it's like, wow, that's impressive.
Yeah,
Company
Nancy.
lunch.
I am going with Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana, who made a spectacle of himself yesterday, put on his heaviest goober accent to attack Dr. and I don't know if I'm pronouncing her first name right, Saul Omarova, who was facing confirmation as Biden's controller of the currency nominee. She was born in the Soviet Union. She, for young people in the Soviet Union, you're automatically enrolled in the Komsomol, which is the Young Communist League. It's kind of like a mandatory scouting program. And then, of course, you age out of this. But at one point he said, "I don't know whether to call you professor or comrade," which is, insulting. It's everything bad thing you can think of. Of course, "I don't know whether to call you professor or comrade." It's
back
just,
in my town. Yeah.
Did you actually resign from the Komsomol? I mean, she just had to keep her. I mean, you could tell she was seething, but she kept her composure. But John Kennedy can
She
can just eat a
she
bag
should
of
have
jalapeno
said,
peppers.
I don't know whether to call you Senator Asshole or Senator Asshole.
You know, he's starting to sound more and more like Oscar on The Office in the episode of Murder, which is sort of this really, really bad Southern accent with a falsetto mixed in with the Water Boy.
That would have been good.
That would have been good. Okay, Greg, your schmuck of the week.
You know, my schmuck of the week it's a tie. I'm leaning with Representative Paul Gosar from Arizona, the guy who got censored for his stupid, middle school anime video that he put out there, and then tried to pretend that, oh, it's no big deal, I was just a joke, blah blah blah. At the same time, he's one of the fools that was hiding underneath his desk when his buddies stormed the Capitol. It's like, really, you act like there's no connection between what's going on, between what you say and what's going on out there in the world in relationship to fueling this anger, in the political world. And the reaction of the Republican leadership there, just going like, it's no big deal, and wait till it's our turn. All you guys are going to get stripped of your committees, and blah 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 blah, and oh my God, gas prices are going up, and they run down this litany of things that I talked about earlier, and you guys are here arguing about a cartoon, this sort of whataboutism kind of like stuff. So he's definitely the schmuck of the week, and the fact that he couldn't even take his punishment gracefully and apologize and just sort of move on, really, I think he should probably get the gold star schmuck of the week.
What is it of the Trump, way of doing things? No apologies.
Never apologize.
No stepping back. No acknowledgement that I've done something god awful. I mean,
but it's, we would if my eighth grader, my kid was in eighth grade and they did something like that, I'd be like, what are you, stupid? What's wrong with you? Don't do stuff like that to people.
Did you ever see the ad that Paul Gosar's siblings did before he ran one of the last times? Did you see that, Greg?
No, I didn't see it. What was
well, he has like two or three, he's a couple brothers and a sister, and they made an ad attacking him. Well, not attacking him, just saying, we're Paul Gosar's siblings. We know him better than anyone. Don't vote for him. It was amazing. Talk about awkward Thanksgiving.
But the other one, my other schmuck of the week, is the collective leadership at the Bloomfield Hills public school system and their inability to address, the feelings, the racism that's going on in the school district, and the discontent that people feel in relationship to how they deal with that kind of stuff. I think they did a really poor job.
We did a story this morning, and I was going through the court records, and they were showing pictures in the bathroom with the N-word and kill all the N's, and it was pretty horrifying for a school in a district like that. I don't know.
Can I just say I'm glad that for once it's not Grosse Pointe.
I know, right?
I mean, it's time the West Side took their share of this.
Yay, West Side.
This misery. So,
racism knows no boundaries. It just kind of
it's true. Same with anti-Semitism. So there you go.
Yeah.
So my schmuck of the week was going to be the Yorkshire Cricket Club in England for its systemic racism, but there's just not enough time remaining in 2021 to explain cricket. So I was going to go with Kevin McCarthy for being complicit in absolving Paul Gosar, the House Minority Leader, but there's just simply too much that Kevin McCarthy has done to just be schmuck of the week. So my schmuck of the week is going to be ex-NFL player Zach Stacy, who had a very, very disturbing video caught on home surveillance of him throwing his ex-girlfriend across the room into a flat screen TV in front of their 5-month-old son, really roughing her up. And now he is a fugitive from the law because he left despite the fact that she contacted the police immediately. He's staying one step ahead of them. really, really brutal act of violence with Zach Stacy, and yeah, definitely qualifies as Schmuck of the Week. So
I saw that. It was amazing. I don't
yeah.
understand how a man with enough size on him to play in the NFL, I wouldn't hit a child like that. And, to take on a woman that looks like she maybe weighs $1.25 at the most,
Yeah.
it's just
It's unbridled rage, just unbridled rage.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be a closed head injury.
Yeah,
I mean,
he hit her
yeah.
really hard. He
Yeah.
hit her once, and then he threw her, and then he hit her again, I think. So it was pretty bad.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Well, okay. Again, thank you all for joining us for this the week that was, and also thank you to Joel Sklar, Greg Bowens,
Thank you,
Nancy Derringer, and of course Alan Lengel with
Drive home safely.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yeah,
I am.
happy Thanksgiving.
Oh yes, happy Thanksgiving.
Everybody be good.